You are not exactly where you thought you'd be tonight. Instead of drifting into your usual late-night spiral of snack choices and mild existential weather checking, you've found yourself on a damp, windy fjord in what will someday be called Scandinavia. The light is strange here, muted, pewter-colored, like a faded memory. You hear distant gulls, the crackling of a hearth from somewhere nearby, and the slow, deep creak of wooden boats shifting against the tide dot. It's the year 873, give or take. Time isn't great at sending you precise invites. You are wrapped in a heavy wool cloak that smells faintly of moss and salt, because everything here smells faintly of moss and salt. Even the goats. Especially the goats. Your boots squelch slightly on the packed earth path, which is a polite way of saying you're walking through a very dignified sort of mud. You are heading toward a small gathering hall built from pine logs and turf, its thatched roof lopsided in a way that says, "I survived 12 winters and will probably survive 12 more, whether you like it or not." As you approach, you notice something strange. Small, carved wooden birds sit along the roof beam, each with a different expression, some stern, some sleepy, one looking slightly judgmental. You feel judged, but only mildly. Inside the hall, the warmth is immediate. A central fire pit glows softly, casting flickering shadows on the curved beams above. People sit on benches draped in furs, talking in low voices, passing wooden bowls of something thick and unidentifiable. No one seems alarmed that you've appeared, which is either comforting or extremely concerning. An old man, possibly a priest, or possibly just the guy with the biggest beard, leans toward the fire and begins to speak. His voice is gravel and wind, and he tells the group that the birds have whispered again. And what they whispered, he says, is that the winter to come will be long. Longer than usual. One of the women sighs. Again? She mutters, "You sit down. You are here now. And let's be honest, you probably won't make it through this day before we fall too deep into the woolen folds of the Viking world." A soft reminder, if you're enjoying this journey so far, feel free to gently tap the like button with the same energy you'd use to pet a very sleepy raven. You can also subscribe if you'd like to drift through more sleepy history with us in the future. And if you're awake enough, drop a comment with your location and the local time. Let's see how far across the globe this fire reaches. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. The bearded man, his name is Orm, because of course it is, continues his tale. He says that the ravens were seen gathering near the ice flats again, circling a single pine tree. He adds, with a knowing nod, that birds never lie about weather. This earns murmurs of agreement and at least one suspiciously timed cough. What he's referring to is part of an old belief that birds, especially ravens and owls, could sense changes in the land long before humans could. In Viking folklore, birds were not just messengers. They were omens, spies, and sometimes slightly sarcastic commentators of fate. Odin himself, the one-eyed god of wisdom, sent his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, across the world each day. They returned to whisper in his ears at dusk, full of secrets, gossip, and possibly the bird equivalent of Yelp reviews. Tonight, the whisper was about cold. A winter with teeth. Historically, the Norse were highly attuned to nature. With no formal calendars or meteorological apps, people relied on animal behavior, wind shifts, and what moss did on a Thursday afternoon. They marked the seasons by sun positions, but also by subtler signs, like the way a goose honked differently if it sensed an early frost. Yes, that's a real belief, though historians still debate whether it was the goose or the human doing the interpreting. You glance around the hall. Hanging from the beams are bundles of dried herbs, carved bone charms, and what looks suspiciously like a stuffed stoat wearing a necklace. The air is rich with smoke, thyme, and that timeless Viking aroma. Slightly sweaty wool. Someone hands you a wooden cup of mead, and though it's warm and slightly sticky, it tastes like fermented apple pie dreams. A goat sneezes in the corner. No one reacts. You notice now that nearly everyone has some bird carving or feather on their person, on belts, on brooches, even tucked behind ears. It's not just decoration. It's a warning system, a weather forecast, and possibly a fashion statement. You're not sure. A girl no older than 12 stands and says she saw a crow dip its wings 3 times before flying south. This causes several elders to shift uncomfortably. The 3 dip is apparently bad news. Someone mutters about the fish freezing too early. Someone else suggests they dig out the extra cloaks. Someone else mentions that the goat just sneezed. Again, you feel the heat of the fire, the closeness of the hall, the weight of quiet fears and ancient patterns repeating. The idea that birds know what we don't. It lingers, and somewhere, above the wooden beams and whispering smoke, a carved raven stares down at you, unblinking. Morning arrives in a Viking village, not with an alarm clock, but with the slow unzipping of fog dot. You step outside the hall into a pale dawn. The mist clings to the thatched roofs like a second blanket, and the sea in the distance looks less like water and more like spilled pewter. It's cold. Not I forgot my jacket cold. More, the air wants to chew on your ankles cold, somewhere. Nearby, someone is chopping wood. You hear the rhythmic thunk, followed by a grunt that may or may not be directed at the axe itself. There's no rushing here. Just the slow, steady rhythm of surviving a place that actively tries to kill you with charm. You follow a path toward the edge of the village, where a handful of women are spreading fish on wooden racks to dry. The fish smell like regret. One of the women nods at you as if to say, "Yes, we see you, time traveler. No, we're not explaining anything." Someone else is arranging small, carved bird totems around the base of a yew tree. Not for fun, this is serious business. Each carving faces a different direction. This is believed to confuse the spirits of illness and frost. The spirits, apparently, are very easy to disorient if you just throw enough avian decor at them. You watch silently, your breath curling in the morning chill. And then you hear a crow cawing in the distance, followed by a second. The woman closest to you mutters, "Twice means ice." That's another saying. Vikings had dozens of them. Crow twice, salt thrice, or if the owl blinks left, don't go fishing. You get the sense these weren't rigid rules so much as cozy reminders that nature was in charge. And it had a very specific sense of humor. One major fact about Norse culture: they didn't separate the mystical from the practical. Weather, crops, illness, and bird gossip were all part of the same woolly tapestry. You could plant turnips and consult a seer in the same breath. You wander back toward the central hall and pass an elderly man sitting on a stool, whittling what appears to be another bird. His lap is full of shavings, and his brow furrowed in a way that says he's not sure whether this bird should look ominous or friendly. He settles for mildly disapproving. "A winter bird," he says to no one in particular, "one that keeps secrets." Scholars still debate whether these carvings were mostly symbolic or actual tools in weather prediction. It's possible the act of carving was the point away to meditate on the coming cold, to shape your hopes into wood and let them dry in the sun. A small boy runs past you wearing what might be a crow feather cape, tripping over his own enthusiasm. But behind him, a woman carries a basket of moss and winter herbs, some of which you recognize from the bundles hanging in the hall last night. She tells you they're meant for tea, and also dreams. It's not clear which is more important. You pause by the path and look up. A raven glides overhead, making no sound, its wings tilting like the slow turning of a page. You think of Hugin and Nunin, again thought and memory flying across the world each morning, returning each night with whispers. Maybe they've seen your time, too. Maybe they know how it all ends and just don't want to spoil it. Maybe they're the original internet, but made of feathers and solemn judgment. Back inside the hall, a new discussion is underway. Someone suggests moving the hay closer to the hearths. Another insists they should start freezing fish into blocks, just in case the whisperings are right. And one man, clearly a fan of optimism, says it might be a short winter after all. The group looks at him like he's just announced he plans to surf on icebergs. You sit quietly, mead cup in hand, and let the voices wash over you. You feel yourself. Slow. Time bends a little in this place, like smoke curling toward the rafters, and outside, just barely, you hear another bird call. One, then two, then silence. Let me know when to continue. The trees creak like old knees. You walk deeper into the pine-heavy edge of a fjord where the light grows slower, syrupy, and golden. The air is cold but not cruel, and the moss beneath your feet has the softness of bread left out overnight. Somewhere overhead, a raven croaks, not menacingly, more like he's clearing his throat to gossip. This is the part of the world where even the birds have opinions. You pass an elderly man, wrapped in wool and listening intently to the treetops. He holds a small wooden token in his hand and mutters something about signs. You nod, respectfully pretending you understand. But what he's doing isn't madness, it's ornithomancy, the ancient Norse belief that birds, particularly ravens, carried secrets about fate and seasons and all the little unpredictable whims of the gods. Ravens were the favorite messengers of Odin, after all. Hugin and Munin thought and memory. Every morning they'd fly across the world and whisper what they'd seen into the Allfather's ears. Kind of like the Viking version of a very judgmental newsletter. The idea was this: if birds flew east in the morning, it might mean a good harvest. If they circled overhead at dusk, something ominous brewed. And if they pooped on your shoulder, well, that was less divine and more a reminder to Taddeo. Wash your only tunic. You pause beneath an ancient spruce, branches twisted like old fingers. The bark smells peppery. Overhead, a pair of birds flutter between branches and let out 3 cackling calls in rapid succession. According to a long-forgotten Icelandic folk-tale, that exact pattern meant you're about to have guests, possibly bears, possibly in-laws. There's some debate, a major fact. Vikings deeply respected ravens, not only for their mythological importance, but also for practical use. They even brought them aboard ships to help find land. If the raven didn't return, it meant land was nearby. It's essentially early GPS with feathers and no subscription fee. You pass a carved stone set half-sunk in moss. Its surface is slick with rain and rune-scrawled with words lost to time. You don't need to read them to feel their weight. Maybe it's a boundary marker, maybe a grave. Maybe it says, "Don't trust birds after moonrise." Historians still debate. There's a gentleness here, even in the mystery. Everything is wrapped in layers, fog, wool, breath. You hear the distant trickle of a stream, a lullaby whispered through frost-wrinkled leaves. You sit by the water and watch a heron stand very still. It seems to be doing nothing, but in that nothingness there's meaning. Perhaps it's divining weather, or maybe it's just really, really patient. Either way, you envy it. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some sagas mention that Norse seers' vulvas would imitate bird sounds during trances to receive omens. Imagine a respected elder croaking like a raven to predict your cousin's engagement. Nearby, a wooden stool is half buried in the undergrowth. You brush it off and take a seat. A comfortless comfort, like most Viking furniture. But from here, the view is perfect. Gold light on cold water, slow clouds coiling like sleeping wolves overhead. You probably won't move for a while, and that's fine, because here, doing nothing has always been a kind of magic. You wake gently, sleepily. Not from sleep exactly, but from one of those slow daydreams that happen when the wind is soft and you've forgotten your errands. The forest has shifted slightly. The light is now amber, slanting between trees like honey dripping through pine. Needles. Somewhere nearby, a wooden wind chime clicks lazily in the breeze, made from bones. Decorative ones, hopefully. You wander again, this time toward a clearing you hadn't noticed before. There's a small settlement here, just a few sod-roofed. Homes clustered together like sheep in bad weather. Smoke curls from chimneys. A dog barks once, then decides it's not worth the energy. This is not a grand Viking city. There are no helmeted warriors clanking around, and no one is setting fire to anything. This is the other side of Norse life, quiet, domestic, practical. The bit that usually gets skipped in the sagas. Children are mending nets. A woman is boiling something herbal in a pot that smells like mint and misery. A man is trying to fix a fence using a tool that is, by all accounts, just a rock tied to a stick. It works, eventually. The simplicity is soothing. There are no grand gestures here. Just repetition habit. The daily rituals that cradle survival. A historical fact. Norse daily life revolved around subsistence farming, fishing, and seasonal trade. While raids get all the screen time, most Vikings spent their days tending goats, repairing boats, and politely arguing about firewood. You're offered a cup of sour whey. It's an acquired taste. But in this world, nothing goes to waste. Even the whey dot as you sip or pretend to. You notice a boy chasing a raven with a stick, yelling, "Stop stealing my lunch, demon feather." The bird ignores him with the dignity of a minor deity, which, frankly, it sort of is. You sit on a low bench outside a house, The wood cracked and grayed with time. It groans under you, but doesn't break. A metaphor, perhaps. The house beside you has a single carved post by the door face. Worn down, its mouth curled in something between a grin and a grimace. Some believe these were guardian spirits. Others say they were just good luck. Some historians suggest they were warnings to tax collectors. Interpretations vary. A sheep wanders by. You both nod in mutual understanding. Neither of you has plans. Today, obscure cultural tidbit. In some Norse villages, people believed knitting by moonlight could enchant a garment with protection, assuming you didn't drop a stitch. If you did, that sweater might curse someone's crops. Sleepwear with consequences. The sun begins to lean toward the hills. Shadows lengthen. Someone is baking bread in a clay oven. The smell is enough to anchor you right where you are. Bread and wood smoke, the scent of continuity. The raven lands on a roof beam nearby and gives you a long sideways stare. Maybe it's curious. Maybe it knows something. Maybe it just wants your last bite of barley biscuit. You offer it. It does not thank you, but it doesn't leave either. You rest your elbows on your knees and breathe deeply. The air is thick with ordinary wonder. Time slows. And so do you, because this too is history, not the battles or the ships or the gods shouting from mountaintops, not just a bench. A raven, a warm fire somewhere, and you doing absolutely nothing, and somehow doing it right. You wake again, or maybe you never quite stopped drifting, and now it's evening. The kind of evening where everything is blue and gold at once, as if the sky hasn't decided what emotion to wear. The small village you wandered through earlier has quieted. A few hearths flicker behind wool-covered windows. You hear a flute playing somewhere, not polished, not perfect, but with a kind of sleepy honesty. The tune sways like laundry on a line. You decide to follow it. The path winds between houses, through grass worn down by footfalls and sheep hooves and time. You pass a child carefully arranging feathers in a circle on the ground. She's not playing. She's concentrating ritual-like. A pattern her grandmother taught her, perhaps. To honor the birds, or maybe just to please them. You try not to step on anything important, a major fact. Vikings had a deeply animistic view of the world, believing that spirits dwelled in objects, animals, and natural places. Even tools might have moods. Forests could sulk, and birds were definitely watching. The flute grows louder. You come upon a gathering by a longhouse modest in size, its walls built from overlapping planks that moan slightly in the breeze. People sit around a fire. Pit, sipping mead from horn cups and listening to an old man with a beard like sea foam tell a story. You ease into a spot on the edge. No one minds. No one asks questions. You are just another shadow among shadows, welcome by virtue of existing. The storyteller speaks of a winter so long, birds forgot how to return. The fjords froze. The wolves came too close. And one girl who understood the language of ravens saved the village by listening. By knowing when to leave food, when to stay inside, and when to laugh even when things felt impossible. It's unclear if this girl was real or just a metaphor for hope. Historians still debate. You sip warm mead. It tastes like fermented honey and strange comfort. A dog rests its head on your knee. You allow it. You allow everything. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Norse believed certain bird calls could be mimicked to charm someone into liking you. Courtship, it seems, occasionally involved squawking from behind trees. Romance was loud. The fire crackles. Sparks drift upward like tiny thoughts returning to the sky. Someone hands you a slice of dense rye bread, still warm. It is exactly what you needed, though you didn't know you were hungry. The raven appears. Again, perched now on a wooden post, watching the firelight as if reading it. You swear it nods. Or maybe it's just cold. You don't need to understand everything. In fact, not understanding is part of the charm. Like dreams. Or taxes. As the flute plays on and the story meanders, somehow involving a swan, a sword, and a very confused farmer, you lean back against a sack of hay. The hay smells like sun and dust and patience, and it is very easy here to forget the shape of worry. Later still, perhaps hours, you find yourself walking along the coastline. You didn't plan to. Your feet just decided, and you agreed. The sea is dark, but not black. More like pewter, shimmering, stretching to the edge of knowing. Waves roll in slow and soft, like they're trying not to wake anyone. You follow a path worn into the dunes. It winds between sea grasses that tickle your ankles and whisper things you're glad you can't quite hear. The night air carries salt and something else. Something older than language. The scent of deep time. You come across a carved stone again, half buried and worn smooth by wind. You touch it. It's cold and stubborn. A rune stone, perhaps. A memory someone tried to anchor. The Vikings loved carving memories into stone. Not just the names of the dead, but boasts, jokes, insults, even riddles. There's one famous runestone that reads, essentially, Thor wrote this. No thanks to that useless guy Raph. You admire the pettiness. A historical fact, Viking runestones weren't just grave markers. They were storytelling devices, status symbols, and occasionally passive-aggressive tweets in rot form. You walk further until you reach a half-collapsed watchtower on a rocky outcrop. Not defensive, not grand, just a place to sit and see the world from. It smells like old wood, sea spray, and dried fish. 3 of the Norse national fragrances. You climb up slowly, the wood creaking but holding. At the top, a bench waits. Everything in this world seems to have a bench. You are grateful. From here, you can see far out across the dark water. The moon reflects in ripples. You spot a distant shape, maybe a ship, maybe a dream. Doesn't matter. The raven arrives again, this time closer. It lands beside you with no fanfare, just presence. Its eye gleams, and then it speaks. Not in words, of course, but in posture, in presence, in a way that says, there is more to know, but not tonight. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Norse believed ravens could carry a person's soul into the next life if they died far from home. A kind of spiritual Uber. No tip necessary. You sit together in the quiet. Just 2 beings, watching the sea remember itself. A breeze picks up. It smells faintly of herbs. Someone, somewhere, is boiling something. Hopeful. The stars blink on overhead, slow and uncertain, like elders waking up. One by one, constellations drift into view. The Norse saw ships in the stars, birds, serpents, lovers, maps for the bold, and bedtime stories for the homesick. The raven shifts, ruffles its feathers, then, without drama, takes flight. Its wings beat slowly, rhythmically, like a lullaby in motion. You watch until it vanishes into the night, and then you sit there a while longer, because sometimes stillness is the story. You descend from the watchtower quietly, as if you're trying not to wake the coastline. Your boots press softly into the sand, leaving the kind of footprints that seem to want to be erased. The village is far behind you now. Here, everything is wind and water and sky, the edges of the world. You follow the coastline a little further, and eventually find a tucked-away cove cradled by jagged stones and tangled driftwood. It feels like a place not even maps know about. There's a makeshift shelter here, half cave, half hut, with whale bones lashed into the frame and seaweed, braided for windbreaks. Someone lived here once, or hid, or waited. You sit at its entrance and rest your back against a rock worn smoother than you'd expect. A rock that feels like it's been listening for centuries. The tide pulls in and out like the planet's breathing. Somewhere far off, a seal barks. Or maybe it's just a Viking ghost telling you to mind your own business. Major historical fact. In coastal Norse settlements, it wasn't unusual for solitary mystics or vulvas, female seers and wise women to live apart from the village, often near the sea or deep in forests. They were consulted for omens, divination, and sometimes just for really strong herbal tea. You find traces of someone like that here. Dried herbs bundled on hooks, feathers tied in patterns, a bowl of polished stones, a carved stick with markings too worn to decipher. The wind outside howls a bit. You tuck your cloak tighter, even though you're not wearing one. Your imagination is very committed to historical accuracy. A thick gull swoops down and lands near your foot, staring like it's just caught you stealing its chair. You offer a polite nod. The bird blinks once and waddles off. Approval granted. You're not alone out here, not really. Even the rocks seem to lean in to listen. Obscure cultural tidbit. In Norse sagas, birds sometimes appear in dreams to deliver messages, but not always profound ones. Some warned of goat theft or awkward family dinners. The gods have a sense of humor. You lean back further and glance upward. The sky has shifted into something darker, more velvet. A thin spray of stars trickles across it like spilt flour. You start to wonder about the people who lived in this little shelter. What did they think when the first snow came too early? What did the birds whisper then? The scholarly records don't say. In fact, historians still debate whether this type of remote hermitage was spiritual, strategic, or simply what happened when your neighbors got too nosy. You hear a low hum wind or a distant voice. It's all blurred here. Time has a way of curling in on itself. A loop instead of a line. Sleep tugs at your mind like the tide on a boat rope. You let it. You wake to gulls dash again. It's morning now, somehow. The pale light of a northern sunrise bleeds gently over the horizon, slow and gold like honey from a cold jar. Everything looks like it's been dipped in milk. You stretch. It feels absurdly satisfying. Somewhere your back cracks. You thank the gods of small chiropractic miracles. You decide to follow the shoreline inland, where a stream curls through a low valley between mossy hills. You walk beside it, watching birds peck among the stones, occasionally dipping their beaks and flicking water like tiny kings with urgent opinions. Then you see it, a ring of standing stones, lopsided and worn by rain. Some lean against each other, like tired friends at a party that's gone on too long. Others seem to stand guard, silent, judgmental, dramatic. You approach. No signs, no fences, just old energy humming faintly beneath your boots. Major historical fact, though not exclusively Viking. Stone circles and standing stones were often repurposed by later Norse settlers for rituals, sacrifices, or seasonal observances. What began as Bronze Age astronomy sometimes became picnic spots for Odin. There are feathers scattered here too, nestled in cracks, tucked into moss. A raven swoops overhead, crying out once long, sharp, declarative. You can't tell if it's warning you, blessing you, or just showing off. You sit on the flattest stone. It's cold. You sit anyway. The stream babbles nearby, as if trying to gossip about your presence. You pull from your pocket something you didn't know you had, a small, black feather. You spin it between your fingers. It's warm, or you are. The boundary blurs. Obscure cultural tidbit. In Icelandic folklore, some claimed ravens could ferry thoughts between people. If you whispered into a raven's feathers and let it go, your message might land in someone's dreams. Consent not guaranteed. You glance at the sky. The clouds are thin and shy today. There's peace here, but it's the kind with stories under the surface, like a smile hiding a secret. A child's laughter echoes through the valley. You turn, but no one's there. Perhaps a memory. Perhaps your own. There's no hurry to find. Out, you let the feather go. It catches the wind, floats upward, wobbles like a clumsy dancer, and then disappears. You whisper something too, just in case. Not because you expect an answer, just because it feels like the kind of place that deserves to be spoken to, even if it's only nonsense, even if the birds are the only ones who'll hear. You follow a goat path now, not because you need to, but because it's there. And what are Viking dreams if not occasionally dictated by goats? The trail curves lazily along the grassy ridge. Below, the sea stretches flat and dull like hammered tin. The wind is calmer today, though it still insists on rearranging your hair like a well-meaning but misguided ant. Your feet crunch over frost-kissed lichen and loose stone. A few birds flap overhead, then vanish into the distance like they're late for something important. Maybe they are. Maybe birds have deadlines too. The path leads you to a hidden farmstead. Not grand. Just a longhouse, a smoky outbuilding, and a collapsed fence that clearly gave up centuries ago. But the bones of life are here. You can see them. Smoke curls lazily from the turf-roofed longhouse chimney. Somewhere, someone is burning something that smells like meat moss. And a little too much pride. You knock. No answer. You open the door and step inside anyway. Because that's how dreams work, and because hospitality in the Viking world was law. If someone shows up at your door in the cold, you feed them. If they're carrying a sword, you also keep an eye on the silverware. Major historical fact. Viking longhouses were shared by entire extended families plus servants, livestock, and the occasional runaway bard. They could stretch over 70 feet long, with a central hearth and benches lining the walls. Cozy and slightly flammable. Inside, the light is dim and flickering. Not candlelight, but firelight, soft and rhythmic. A woman stirs a pot. She doesn't look up. She doesn't need to. Sit, she says. So you do. The bench is warm, worn smooth by 100 conversations and naps. You rest your hands on your knees, suddenly aware of how loud your breath sounds in the hush. A cat hops up beside you, tail high, gaze indifferent. You offer it a nod. It does not return the favor. Obscure cultural tidbit. Vikings believed that Freya, goddess of love and war, rode a chariot pulled by 2 cats. Naturally, domestic cats were considered lucky unless they stared at you too long. Then maybe they were gods, or just judgy. The woman ladles soup into a wooden bowl and slides it your way. It smells like onion, dried fish, and memories. You eat it anyway. You thank her softly. She nods once, then stares into the fire as if watching a scene unfold in the coals. Maybe she is. There's something peaceful here, not in a loud, celebratory way. Just the quiet rhythm of survival, of living another day, of waiting for spring, of keeping the birds fed, the snow off the roof. She speaks again. Birds know, she says, voice raspy like bark. They always do. You glance at the rafters. No birds in sight, but you believe her. You ask what the vivarask birds have been saying. Long winter, she replies, stirring the pot. Of course, they always say that. You leave the longhouse with a full belly and a sense of borrowed time. The wind has shifted again, softer, but cooler, like a breath drawn in before a long sentence. Ahead, a trail of feathers leads up a slope, disappearing behind a rocky outcrop. You follow, because of course you do. The incline is gentle at first, then steeper. You climb, brushing your hands along frost-rimmed bushes and brambles. A grouse startles from the undergrowth, flapping with the urgency of someone who forgot their wallet. You crest the hill, and there it is, a clearing ringed by leaning pines, their trunks gnarled like old fists. In the center stands a towering pole weather-worn, carved from oak, its top crowned with a raven of blackened iron. It stares northeast, unmoving. This is a horger, a sacred site. No signs, no benches, no tour guides in fleece vests. Just earth and sky and the feeling that something still listens here. Major historical fact. Horger were Old Norse outdoor altars, simple stone heaps or carved posts used for offerings to the gods, especially in winter, when hope needed a little extra kindling. At the base of the post, someone has left bones, fish, lamb, a necklace of beads, and feathers, of course. Always feathers. The raven creaks slightly in the wind. You step closer, and you hear it. Not speech, not exactly, just sound. A low, hollow cooing like breath through a flute made of bone. You're not sure if it's wind in the trees or memory in the wood. You sit cross-legged in the moss. You close your eyes. You listen, and the birds speak. They don't use words. Not really. But you understand them anyway. They speak of frost crawling over rivers, of ships iced in at harbor, of children with red cheeks and rough mittens, of gods who pace in silence, waiting for the light to return. They speak of a long winter, but not a cruel one. Just long, like an old story you keep rereading, not because it changes, but because you do. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Viking communities believe that ravens perched on high poles called rafstiffer could carry prayers to Odin, especially those whispered in the depth of night. You stay until the light begins to fade, until the air smells like snow again, and the birds quiet down, tucking their secrets beneath their wings. You rise slowly, bones creaking in sympathy with the trees. The path back is easy now. Or maybe you've just gotten better at walking it. The raven stays behind, watching. It always does. You descend the slope just as the sky begins to ripen with twilight, one of those dusks that feels stitched from violet and ash, where the sun is less of a source of light and more of a rumor. The trees creak behind you. Somewhere far off, an axe strikes wood, and you wonder briefly if it's chopping firewood or memory. You decide it's both. You pass again the place where the grouse had startled, but now it's quiet. The snow is beginning to feather the ground like someone shaking out a wool blanket. And then you hear it soft singing, almost a hum. You follow the sound, because this is a Viking dream, and here, music means something is about to change. The trail takes you to a tiny hut half hidden in a copse of birch trees. Smoke curls upward like a question mark, and the singing grows clear and melodic, lilting, as if the voice were made of snowflakes and lullabies. You knock. "Come in," a voice calls, younger this time. Curious. Inside is a girl, maybe 13, maybe ageless. She has a crow perched on her shoulder and a bowl of ink beside her. She's painting something on birch bark with a feather. She doesn't look surprised to see you. "You're late," she says, and smiles. You sit beside her. She offers you a piece of dried apple, which tastes like sun that got lost in autumn. On the walls hang dozens of painted birds, ravens, crows, owls, swans. None look still. Their wings are always mid-beat, their eyes always looking just past you. You ask her what she's painting. "A warning," she says, casually. Or a wish, depends how it ends. Major historical fact. The Vikings used runes not just for writing, but for magic. Carved or painted onto wood or stone, they were thought to bring protection, change the weather, even summon or silence birds. Some runes were never translated, possibly, because no one wanted to say what they actually meant. You watch her dip the feather in ink again. It's a sleek black plume, curved with age. Not just any birds, you ask. Raven, she replies, but not from around here. Of course not. She hums again, and the crow on her shoulder makes a noise that sounds suspiciously like agreement. Or sarcasm. It's hard to tell with birds. You ask what the birds are saying now. She shrugs. Same as always. Stay warm. Hide your fish. Don't trust the wind. You nod solemnly, because frankly, those are pretty solid life tips. Obscure cultural tidbit. In some Nordic folktales, birds were said to carry souls to the afterlife. If you saw one sitting on a windowsill, it was either good luck or a message from a dead ant. There was no middle ground. The girl finishes her painting. She holds it up to the firelight. It shows a long winter, just as the birds had said. Snow. On roofs. Smoke curling up into stars. And someone small, bundled, walking into the white. Is it you? You ask. She shakes her head. It's always you. And just like that, you're outside again. The door is closed behind you. The hut is gone. Only the apple taste remains. You wake up leaning against a pine tree, which is curious because you don't remember falling asleep. Everything is soft now. The snow falls in polite, symmetrical flakes. The sky is a hazy sheet of opal. And the forest has gone quieter than before, like it's listening to you breathe. You follow a new path now, worn but not walked. The kind of trail that seems like it's been waiting just for you, only you're very late and it's too shy to say anything. The trees thin as you walk. Soon, you're in open moorland again, under a yawning winter sky that feels older than language. Up ahead, a ring of stones. Not tall, just deliberate, circular. Someone made this long ago when circles still meant something. You step inside. And there right in the middle is a single iron cage. Empty. But very obviously not forgotten. It creaks in the wind. The door hangs open like a mouth that once shouted and now just mumbles to itself. Major historical fact. Vikings had complex ideas about justice. Trial by assembly. The thing was common. But sometimes offenders, especially oath-breakers, were subject to more creative consequences. Some were caged or tied in remote places as warnings or sacrifices to unseen forces. Others were simply exiled and told to take the long walk. You circle the cage. There are feathers around it, white, black, gray. So many feathers, it's like something once molted its entire history right here. On one stone sits a broken helm, split clean down the middle. You lean down and touch it. It's cold, of course. Everything is. But there's a strange warmth behind your eyes, like you're remembering something that hasn't happened yet. And then, very faintly, you hear the flutter of wings. A raven lands on the helm, not gracefully, more like a controlled collapse. It eyes you with all the judgment of a scholar, grading essays at 3 a.m. You nod. It nods back. You ask it what it wants. It tilts its head. You already know. The bird says in a voice made of twigs and echo, which is either comforting or not. You sit beside the cage for a while, saying nothing. The raven stays. Sometimes silence is a language, especially in dreams, especially in winter. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Viking-era sorcerers were called Galdrar, and were believed to speak the language of birds. Or perhaps it was the birds who spoke their language, and the rest of us just weren't invited. Eventually, the raven flies off slow and deliberate, as if time is something it carries under its wings. You rise and brush snow from your sleeves. The cage creaks again, but this time it almost sounds like laughter. You walk again, because walking is the only thing that seems to move the story forward. The land begins to slope gently downward. You follow a stream now, narrow and swift, carving through the snow like it knows where it's going, even if it won't tell you. Overhead, clouds hang low and moody, like they've been scolded. The sound of water becomes louder, rushing and chattering as if it's been saving up gossip for centuries. You round a bend, and there it is, a waterfall. Not a dramatic one. Just steady, patient, like it's been pouring itself out for 1,000 years and is completely fine with that. Arrangement dot at its edge, crouched on a flat rock, is a man. His hair is matted with frost. His cloak is fur, heavy and full of weather. In his hands he holds what looks like a flute, but not quite. More bone than music. You don't ask if you can sit beside him. You just do. He doesn't look at you, but he starts to play. The tune is barely there. Just breath against wind, with notes so fragile they might disappear before they reach your ears. Still, you hear them. You ask what the song means. He shrugs. Whatever the birds are dreaming about. Major historical fact, Viking. Skalds, poet-musicians, were considered keepers of memory and reputation. Their words could elevate someone to legend, or reduce them to footnote. And sometimes they simply played to the trees, because even trees deserved poetry. You noticed the man's boots. Worn but well stitched. One has a feather tucked under the strap. Raven, again. He stops playing and finally turns to you. Do you know the word for snow that never lands? He asks. You shake your head. He smiles. Neither do I, but I think the birds do. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Norse believed that ravens could detect liars, that if one landed on your roof while you were swearing an oath, you might want to double-check your truthfulness. Several marriages may have been delayed by unexpected bird appearances. The man rises, tucks his flute into his belt, and walks across the river. Just like that. Doesn't fall in, doesn't slip. Just steps on stones you didn't see before at the other side. He turns, lifts a hand, and then vanishes behind a curtain. Of trees, you sit a while longer, letting the sound of water wash your thoughts clean. No ravens this time, just the wind, and the odd feeling that you're being gently prepared for something. The path narrows now, winding through pine and birch, through moss-covered stumps and stones that hum if you lean close enough. Everything is quieter than before, as if the world has drawn in a breath. Up ahead, the trees part into a clearing. There's a circle of figures standing around a fire. You approach slowly, but no one turns. They're watching the flames, listening. The figures are tall, cloaked. Bird masks obscure their faces, long beaks carved of wood, painted in black and gold. Each mask is different. One looks like a raven, another like an owl, Another like something that might not be a bird at all. You step closer. No. One stops you. You find your place in the circle. The fire crackles like parchment. A woman steps forward. She removes her mask. Her face is lined but soft, the kind that looks like it has laughed more than it's frowned. She holds something wrapped in cloth. She opens it carefully. Inside is a feather. Just one, gleaming, long, black with iridescent. Green at the tips. It looks familiar. You've seen it in dreams. Or paintings. Or maybe just in the corner of your thoughts. She places it on a stone. Everyone bows their head. Major historical fact. Some Viking winter rituals largely lost to time may have involved symbolic offerings to the spirits of the air, especially birds. Feathers were left on stones or hung in trees to ensure safe passage through the darker months. Not quite sacrifice. More like negotiation. The woman speaks, voice low and steady. We give this whisper to the wind, she says. Let the winter hear us. Let the birds remember. Everyone repeats the words. You do too, because it feels right. Because sometimes echoing is a kind of belonging. The fire flares, not wildly. Just enough. And then the figures begin to hum a droning chant that resonates low in your chest, like distant thunder with a good singing voice. The kind of sound that doesn't want to wake you, only to settle under your skin and remind you that you're still part of something old and soft and feathered. Obscure cultural tidbit. In certain Norse regions, it was believed that some birds, especially ravens, gathered secrets during the winter and delivered them to the gods come spring. Whether the gods appreciated this unsolicited gossip is unclear. The chant fades. The woman replaces her mask. No one says goodbye. They walk away, one by one, disappearing into the trees like smoke into night. You're the last to leave. You don't take the feather. You just look at it. And it looks back. The air smells like cedar and snow. You walk on. Somewhere above. Wings flutter once. Not far now. You walk until you're not walking anymore. The path dissolves into open field. The snow here is untouched now. Tracks, no feathers, not even a curious fox. Just white stretching in every direction like the world has forgotten what shape it used to be. The silence is the kind you can hear, a gentle hush that presses against your ears, soft and ancient. You wonder if this is what the gods meant when they said stillness, or maybe they just wanted an excuse to nap. Either way, it's working. In the center of the field stands a tree, bare, tall, alone. Its branches splay like ink strokes, reaching toward a sky that can't make up its mind between dusk and dawn. You make your way to it. It takes longer than expected. Or maybe you're just walking slower now, as if time has thinned into something syrupy, like warm honey over bread. At the base of the tree, a bench, not a modern one. Just a wide, flat stone, sunken and familiar, as if hundreds have sat here before you, thinking slow thoughts and watching the snow try to explain itself. You sit and breathe. From a nearby branch, a raven croaks. Not loudly, more like a polite throat clear. You look up. It watches you. Then another joins it. Then a third. The tree slowly becomes feathered. Not with birds, but with memory. Major historical fact. The Norse believed in a world tree Yggdrasil that held all realms in its branches. Odin himself hung from it for 9 nights to gain wisdom. Some thought the tree touched both the underworld and the stars. This tree may not be Yggdrasil, or maybe it is. You won't be the one to decide. You close your eyes. The wind is gentle now, the kind that loops instead of pushes. You hear the birds begin to sing, not a song really, just sound. Sleepy and slow, like someone humming through a dream. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It matters that it's here, obscure cultural tidbit. In some Nordic lullabies, birds were used as metaphors for the soul fluttering, circling, waiting. Parents whispered to babies that ravens would carry their dreams to the stars. And if the birds sang softly, the child would wake kind. You feel your breath slow, not because you're tired, but because there is nothing left to rush toward. The snow falls, again steadier now. It coats your shoulders, your lap, your eyelids. The ravens do not fly away. They stay like sentinels. Or perhaps old friends who know how to be quiet with you. No messages now. No warnings, just stillness. You might stay here a while, or forever. Either way, the birds will wait. They always do. And now, everything begins to soften. The snow settles into folds like a woolen blanket, tucking the land beneath it with practiced hands. The tree sways slightly, not because of the wind, but because the wind has decided, wants to sing something low and wordless. You hear it in your chest, where stories sleep. The birds on the branches grow still. Their feathers ruffle once, then smooth. They blink slowly, one eye at a time, like old monks who know not to rush enlightenment. The sky above has gone full velvet, now blue and silver. A quiet spill of starlight so gentle it feels like apology. Clouds drift without purpose. Stars arrive without fanfare. Your breath grows longer. Your thoughts quieter. The world is not ending here. It's just curling inward for a nap. Somewhere in a village, someone stirs a fire. A pot clicks gently on a hook. Someone hums the same tune you heard earlier, only slower and softer. Like it's meant for no one in particular. And still, the ravens remain. They've said all they needed to. The rest is yours now, your footsteps, your pauses. Your way of seeing snowflakes as messengers instead of weather. Let the last sounds be wind in pine needles. Let the last sight be feathers catching moonlight. Let the weight in your limbs tell you it's okay to stop moving. You've heard the birds. You've walked the paths. You've seen the winter for what it is. Long, yes, but full of soft stories, tucked feathers, and quiet waiting. Now rest. Let your mind drift like snow between trees. The birds will watch over you. And if they whisper, let them. Let them. Good night.